Hello and welcome to another preview show of the New South Wales Junior and Sub-Junior State Championships. So, kicking things off, we'll start things off with our Sub-Junior women's, Sub-Junior men before we move on into the battles. Obviously, a lot of the things are based on nominated totals. A lot of people have been getting stronger. And so therefore, everything's kind of up in the air when we do start to see these battles unfold, but it is interesting to see where we start off with. So kicking things off, we've got sub-junior women's. So in the under 52s, we've got one competitor, Maddie Harper, coming in with a nominated of 427.5. 57s, we've also got one competitor, Christy Pham, with a 250 kilo
I
nominated.
was about to say, Maddie had a
Ah,
247,
sorry,
447.
I think that's my bad. Stumbling over my words. Yeah, under 69s, we've got Caitlin coming in with 330, and Robin Cahill, coached by Aiden Pot. Both of them coached out of Hunter with 317.5 for Robin. In our under 76 class, we've got Tiggy Sadler Barker, who's just coming off from Worlds in Romania. She just hit a 387 at Romania, and she's currently coached by Dave, hitting apparently 407.5 kilos training total in this week. So heaps of progress since Romania, which was in September. Dave, how's things going with her?
So after Worlds, we started training together. So her training's been really, really good. She had like a bit of a back issue when we first started. So we sort of worked on changing her technique a little bit, especially through her deadlifts. And that sort of just allowed things to skyrocket. I think it's about maybe 7 kilos on deadlift as of right now, which is pretty sweet. And then a whole lot of momentum on all three lifts, which has been great. So we still have one more heavy squat left this week, and I'm hoping they get her up to like that 410 sort of total in training. I would love to have seen her compete in the junior class instead of the sub juniors because she ages into juniors next year, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen, unfortunately. So she'll be in the sub junior mix here with, I forget her name already, the other sub junior, Latifa. So I have no idea how much stronger she's gotten, but it'll be a good battle, and I'm just keen to see, Tiggy put it all together on the platform and crack the 400 milestone.
Looking at our under 84s, we've got two competitors as well. Karina Duzma with 317.5 and Imogen Abbott 332.5 kilo nominated total. Anything to add there, guys?
Just off of Maddie.
Oh, you go.
Yeah, just off Maddie being obviously very, very young, 14 years of old, and benching 75 kilos just from our scouting before. So very impressive. Such a young competitor already benching those kind of numbers. So yeah, it's cool to see that young talent coming through in the sub-junior division just at 14 years old.
Yeah, for sure. All right, moving on, we've got our sub-junior men's. Starting off in the under 53 category, we've got Luke Talley, Jim Gimley with a 425 nominated total. Huge year last year coming out of nationals and commonwealths, squatting over the world record, right? So this year's also seen quite large improvements. Pretty much gone from 390 at nationals, 425 at First Nations, and unfortunately wasn't able to go to worlds this year after his nationals, and he's pretty much proven everyone wrong, smashing that world qualifying total for sub juniors in the under 53 division, and looking to put something up pretty crazy for next week's states as well. Looking at his training, I think he's hit not too long ago like a 170 for 3 squat, so that could possibly project him right into that 195 squat range depending how things taper. Moving on, we've got the under 59s class. We've got Edgy Andrew, coached by Ben Ewan, 350 kilo nominated total, followed by Liam Robinson, 230. So just those two young men. It's looking like Andrew might lock things up, but it's good to see everyone still progress, make strides in their totals, especially as these sub juniors build into their frame as well. I know Andrew did start off quite light, so he is slowly building and filling into his frame. Moving on, under 66s, we've got Noor Yassir, 445 kilo nominated total, and Darren Adviento with a 440 kilo nominated total, and then Terry Tukinuku, 432.5 kilos. So quite a close spread here. Might possibly see a battle, depending how they have been progressing. Moving on, we've got sub junior 74s. Aaron, coached by ZT, 525 nominated total, putting him quite far ahead of the other competitors based on nominateds, followed by Cameron Fogarty with 497.5, and then George Elbita with 480 kilos on nominated total. I think looking at that pretty much locks up first, second, and third there, followed by Isaac Wu, Trenton, and William Leong. What else? We've got the under 93 men, Thomas Bryant, 560, followed by Yusuf Hindi, 540. Rory Davidson with a unquestioned nominated total, so we might need to look that up and see possibly if he's been progressing quite well, but it does look like Thomas is quite ahead there. 105s, Dylan Tran, 582.5. I believe Dylan's training has been going quite well. He is coached by Tony Mai. His progress has been pretty crazy this past year, so we might be seeing that nominated total quite inflated by the time we get to junior states.
Just quickly jumping back to the 93 sub juniors, that Rory Davison, if I've got the right open powerlifting link, he totaled 612.5 at his last comp. So he's nommed first by 50 kilos. So if this is all correct, it's looking like he'll be top dog, and he should easily clean up that first place spot. And then I guess it'll be a battle for second between Thomas and Yusuf.
Yeah, it's always hard, especially with these sub juniors, right? They're all probably still growing super quickly. So seeing these nominated totals aren't a very clear indication of what they're possibly capable of, right? Like they could do a comp 3 months later, add an extra 20, 30 kilos. So you never really know with these sub juniors. All right, moving on. And last but not least, we've got Hugh Spackman, under 120 kilos, coached by Alex Hayes. So 672.5 nominated total, with a massive 280 kilo squat. So as a sub junior, that's huge, right?
Yeah. So I think with
you
Hugh, that 240 squat was the 672.5 kilo total, and he's recently squatted 280 in training. I remember Alex Hazy sharing on his story. So that's plus 40 on his total just from his squat. Talking about growing, Hugh is growing, and he's a big, scary, young 120 gorilla. So it'd be cool to see what he kind of puts across the board for squat, bench, and deadlift. I'm not sure if it was Hugh too, but just on the topic of sub juniors, obviously, and being young and still in school, I remember he shared a story of a couple of the lads trained during schoolies week. I'm not sure if Hugh was one of them, but they were very committed and were Ubering to the gym amidst the festivities of Schoolies Week, which is pretty cool. And obviously getting their recovery through lots of carbohydrates.
Nice, man. Like, I think, yeah, if you're that dedicated to still be training during schoolies, you're doing something right.
Yeah, so it's cool. I mean, I wasn't doing that when I was at schoolies. So again, these sub junior males and females, they're very committed to lifting at such a young age. And obviously, like you said, they can not do a comp and do another one within 6 months and be throwing up huge numbers on the total. So I'm sure we're going to be seeing a lot of that amongst the sub juniors next Friday/Saturday, depending on the schedule.
I think it's really cool to see there's so many more sub juniors coming through the ranks now. Like previously, like when I first started, there was pretty much no sub juniors, but nowadays, like there's almost, it's getting there, but like there's almost as many sub juniors as juniors. So I think that over the next few few years that there will be even more sub juniors, which is really cool to see.
Hopefully, right? And then you get to see the talent pool get bigger and bigger, and that's where you kind of see powerlifting as a whole start to grow. But moving on, we've got so that was our sub junior males and females. We're moving on to our juniors now. This is probably going to make the bulk of our episode. A lot more potential battles and highlights that are coming up. So this one might cover a bit more time. So starting off with our junior females, we've got the under 47 class. We've got Jessica Lee here, First Nations Cup for 265 kilo nominated total. She'll be the only 47 competitor before we move on into the under 52s. We've got Lisa Vo, 360 nominated total, followed by Shirley Lai, 305, Tara Galea, 300, Cheyenne Alford, 300, and Wendy Nguyen, 287.5. Cielito Lapid, 275, and then Sidrel Fajardo, 252.5. Reason being why I covered pretty much all of our competitors in this one is based off our scouting, it looks like everyone's pretty much gotten stronger across the board and could potentially vie for that second and third spot. It does look like Lisa Vo is going to snatch things up for that first position. But Leanne, you've got a bit more info on this. What are your thoughts on that potential second and third spot?
Yeah, so I guess that first is pretty locked up with Lisa. She's nominating a 360 total, which is massive for a 52, especially as a junior. If we look into the second and third place, like you said, I guess they're all pretty even in terms of what they're coming in with. So it'll be quite close, and depending on how much stronger they've all gotten. I think it will be a pretty close battle between Shirley, Tara, Cheyenne, and then also Kelly's client, Wendy. Even though she's nominated at 287.5, I think she's gone quite a lot stronger. So that'll be interesting to see how that pans out.
Yeah, just to throw my thing in it as well, I also coach Sidra, who's nominated at the bottom with 252, but even she's gotten stronger and kind of pushed that potential of like what this nominated total is reflective of, and possibly you're looking at totals upwards of like 290 onwards, right? So nominated totals in this aspect isn't really reflective of what these girls are going to be able to put up on comp day.
I think a lot of them are quite new to the sport, so that's probably why we're seeing the nominated, their training total might be quite higher than the nominated. So yeah, I guess it's cool to kind of see that there's quite a lot more females coming through the ranks too.
Yeah. All right, moving on. We've got the under 57s. We've got Catherine Pham nominated first at 335. Malika Fabroa with 327.5. And then nominated actually third, fourth, and fifth, all at the same total, 317.5. We've got Adrian Lee, Claudia O'Shea, and Eliza Go. So potentially another big battle here, looking like they're vying for that third position spot. First and second, we might even see a potential battle between Catherine and Malika, depending on how training's gone, possibly switching that first and second spot. But that third spot, I believe, is going to be quite a stacked battle.
It will be. I think as a special mention as well, Claudia O'Shea, she's gotten a lot stronger. So looking at what she's been putting up on her Instagram, she hit a 340 training total, which was 7 weeks out. So I believe she's under Alex Hayes. So yeah, that will be interesting to see what she can put up as well.
Yeah, for sure. All right, moving on, we've got the under 63 females. We've got Teresa Tang with 387.5 kilos. Coming in second, we've got Melody Gleason, 332.5. Same nominated total, Karina Tai, 332.5, and Hannah Taylor, 282.5. So again, sorry, you go, Leanne.
Yeah, so I guess Teresa, obviously, she's much ahead of the pack, coming in with her nominated total. I know she also competed at opens as well, so she ended up totaling at 412.5, which was plus 25 on her previous total, giving her pretty decent GL for female as well. She's sitting at 92, so I think it'll be good to see what she can do with her performance on next week. Yeah, and then also special mention to my client Hannah. This is her first year in junior, so she competed last year as a sub junior, and so far she's around about 35 kilos up on her total from last comp. So similar, she's just kind of shooting up, gaining a lot of momentum and putting size on as well in the class, which is good.
Nice. Shout out to Hannah. All right, moving on, we've got the under 69s class. I'll mention the top four here where it's quite close. We've got Rachel Trin with 332.5, Jessica Cook 317.5, followed by the same total Taya Barnes. Sorry, it's cut off here. Barnes Warden, I think. 317.5, and then Eliza Bayer with 310. So looking quite close. Rachel Trin looks like she's edging out that first position. Another battle for second and third here.
Yeah, so Taya is actually my client. She's not competing anymore, so she's out of this competition. But yeah, I think Jessica Cook should, I think, take in that second place.
And we are going to move on to the under 76 class. We've got Leanne with a horse in the game, Sydney Atkins. Huge performance, 420 kilos, nominated first, followed by Jung, who also competed just recently with a nominated of 410, and then Claire Miller, same nominated total, 410 as well.
This will be a very interesting one. Yeah, like they're all coming in very close. I think there's also, I'm not sure, she's not on the nominated list, but Beatrice, I have a feeling she might be competing. She's coming in with a 430 kilo total. So that's also very big. So whether she competes or not, there's still going to be a massive battle between those three. And then also a special mention to Shania's client, Alicia. She's also, it looks like her training's going really well too. So Young is cutting down from the 84s. So it'll be, I guess, interesting to see what she can put up on the day, whether the cut affects her on comp day or not. But yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to see a lot of, like, I think this year's probably the year where I've seen people making that decision to cut down to be a bit more competitive. I like to call it the Evie effect. After it's seen from Sheffield, where, you know, if it's possible to get more competitive and change your podium position, people are starting to consider that route as well. And it does make it interesting for us viewers as well when we do get to see that battle.
For sure, yeah.
All right, moving on. We've got the junior men's now. Under 59s, straight off, we've got a battle between possibly three contenders here. We've got Adrian Abella nominated with 470. Akshay Kumar, shout out to Aki, 457.5. And then Will Q, coached by Dave, 430 kilo nominated. Dave, you might know a bit more about this one. Do you want to dive deep into this one?
Sure. I'm pretty heavily invested in this weight class. Got a couple under 59s that I coach. So with this one, it's actually looking like it'll be really, really close. So current top spots are obviously Adrian and Aki, Mr. Gorilla Jr. So I think these guys will have a really big scrap for first and second. And I think with them being juniors and things like that, I looked at both of their open powerliftings and they both miss a fair bit. So Akshay hasn't actually hit a third deadlift in comp before. The three competitions he's done on open powerlifting, all three deadlifts for his thirds have been missed. So a lot of missed kilos there. Same with Adrian. A lot of missed benches, a lot of missed third deadlifts as well. So these guys like to send it on the platform, but I think that they've both got coaches now that will rein them in and sort of, you know, only load what's needed to put them into that top podium position. I do believe Akshay actually ages out next year as well. So this will just be the state battle. And then it'll be nationals will be a whole different ball game again with seeing who's come up. As far as Will and Mevin go, so these guys are actually a lot closer than the nominations would seem. So Will's nommed at 430, Mevin's nommed at 400. But Mevin's been, blasting through training recently and has put his total up a fair bit. The only thing to note here is that both Will and Mevin tweaked their backs a couple weeks out from competing. So they've been, forcibly dialed back down in terms of their numbers and their loads that they can hit. So it's basically anyone's game for podium spot right now. If Adrian or Aki have a terrible day, these two could sweep in and, jump up fairly high in the podium. And then it'll be the Will versus Mevin, whoever comes in, the most healthy and can, put up close to their best, will end up taking that third spot.
Nice. Really good way to wrap up the 59 class. I'm excited to see the head-to-head battle here between Adrian and Akshay. See what's potentially going to show up, because I know they did face off at X Gym. I guess this will be round 2 for them. But yeah, moving on, we've got the under 69s class. We've got Ezra Duma with a 480 nominated total. Stefan Deng, 457.5. Tin right behind him with 455. And then Leo Lee with 450 kilos. So diving a bit deeper into everyone's training on this one, I think the nominateds make it look out that Ezra is quite ahead and he does hide his training. So it does make it a little bit hard to scout. But if all goes well when he continues to progress beyond that 480, it does look like he is going to be able to lock up that first place. However, that's not to say that these second, third, and fourth nominated guys have gone weaker. In fact, they're possibly able to add quite a lot of kilos depending how training goes. For example, we've got Tin. He just recently competed at Open States, totaling the same he did at Warriors of the West, his qualifying meet. However, he did leave a few kilos, missing his second deadlift with 197.5. However, at the Warriors of the West comp, he hit, I believe, 205. So if he can kind of, fix up his deadlift or keep those kilos in while still keeping the strength that he's got in squat and deadlift, it is looking like he is going to be able to push out into that 465 territory, overtaking Stefan. But as well as that, we've got Stefan, who has also been getting stronger, possibly looking out to finish out in the 485 territory, which is what I was thinking. His squat has blown up quite a bit, as well as his deadlift. I believe he missed 207 in his last comp, but now he's tripling 200. So, if he can fully realize those kilos in a top single on meet day, he's looking to add about an extra 20 kilos on top of his nominated. And then the final guy that I think probably is a little bit of a dark horse, we've got Leo Lee. He was nominated 4th with 450. But looking at his Instagram, those numbers were very well sandbagged. And at a novice comp, he had hit, I believe, like 470. So pretty much very close to the top end there. And I believe if he has gotten stronger, he is in a very good position to vie and take over that second spot when all's said and done. Moving on, we've got the under 74 men's. We've got in first position nominated Alex Nader, 575. 10 kilos behind with 565, we've got Jeremy Kwan. And then 15 behind that, we've got Vijay Bansal. So looking at this, I think Alex also is one to hide his training. So we're not sure about how much he is going to possibly end up. But at the recent qualifying, he did, squat a little less than what he did at Nationals. So if he does look to hit something bigger than what he did at Nationals, maybe if he was sandbagging his qualifier, it's realistic to kind of see him finish around that 585, 590 mark, I believe. Coming in second, you got Jeremy Kwan, 555 kilos with missed lifts. So I believe, if he does make his lifts, he could end up right behind Alex, close to Alex's nominated total, which we're unsure of, right? So pending if the perfect situation arises, Jeremy hits, Alex, who's unknown, potentially doesn't progress, we could see Jeremy maybe take ahead. And then coming in that third spot, we've got Vijay training out of Omni Fitness, 550 kilo total 3 months ago. At 7 weeks out, he posted a total of 570. So it looks like he's also progressed really well in this short amount of time as a junior, which is crazy. In the past, he's roughly matched what he's hit in training. So if he does execute as he's trended in the past, possible contention for second place as well. All right. We're now moving into the 83s. This one is going to be quite stacked. I think a lot of us are quite excited to see this one. We've got James Lee, just competed at Malta, he's got 7:15 from his Perth Cup, but I know that he's hit 7:22 in Malta. We've got 700 coming up next with Lennox Liu. I coach Lennox, so I'm definitely heavily invested in this battle. We've got 672 next with Winston Liang, and then 670 with Kelvin Tran, 657 with Jacob Henry, 647.5 Jason Bowie, and 612 with Brian Kimutai. Very large spread with nominated totals, but reason being, I think with a lot of people heavily invested. I know Dave's got someone coaching. A lot of people have been progressing really, really well in the past couple months leading up to states. And this one is quite exciting. I think James is still quite ahead in nominateds. He did miss a third squat and he missed 2 benches at Malta, possibly leaving around 15 kilos off that. And he's gotten stronger as well. So I predict he's probably going to end up in that 740 range if he does have a good day and executes the way that he does. And my guy, I've got Lennox, deadlift demon. I think he's probably in that position where he can kind of sit back and look at what we need to hit and possibly pull for that second, third, maybe even first spot, pending how James executes on the day. But yeah, we'll keep things going. Winston, he's coached by Squid. His training's also been going very phenomenally well. Since X Gym, he's hit 255 for a double. 250, I believe, is what he hit at X Gym, right? So he's got a lot of kilos going into this comp, well into the 170 kilo territory on bench when he hit like 155 at his qualifier. And now he's deadlifting possibly within that 275 territory. So very, very heavily contested here for that podium spot as well. We've also got Kelvin. As you guys have seen, you guys were there. He was at men's state, so he competed not too recently, or quite recently, sorry. And he just narrowly missed his third deadlift to put himself in position for, I think it was fourth place.
Yeah, it was to overtake Potsy. And I think it was 710, I think is what they were going to land on or something like that. I think
it was a 290 last deadlift, yeah?
Yeah, I think it was Potts ended on 708 or 708.5 or something like that. And I think Kelvin tried to pull for 710 maybe. I can't remember the numbers, but that sounds right to me. Is that Kelvin tried to pull to chip in front to get fourth.
Yeah, pretty much lost like 20 kilos on his deadlift, right? So like easily 20 kilos can be enough to get you into that second or third spot as well. Super, super heavy contenders. And then follow that, we've got Jacob Henry as well. Dave, you might know a little bit more about his training, but from what I've seen, he tapers like a god.
Yeah, so that's pretty much kind of like similar to Lennox, where he's got the pull, he's got a big deadlift. And typically from what we've seen in the past is that Jacob's deadlift tapers really, really well. So he'll, plus 20 from his last pull in training to on the platform. And then for him, it's just about getting as many kilos as he can on his squat and his bench. So from what I can tell from his training, he's squatted 227 this week, which is a small PR. He's going to bench for around 150, 152, which will be, I think, like plus 10, plus 12 on his bench from his nominated total. So it'll be yet to be seen what he can actually put up as far as his training total goes. I'm going to predict maybe around 680 would be like top end of where I think he'll land based on if he tapers and, has a good day.
Yeah. And then I've got another guy here. We've got Jason Bowie. His training's also been going phenomenally well since the Canberra qualifier. Pretty much making his third squat like sub-max weight now. So there's kilos to add there. his bench is blown up. Pretty much what did he hit at Canberra? I think it was like 147 or 145 or something like that. He's benching like 150s, 155s now, potentially. And then his deadlift has shown up quite well on comp day as well. So off like comparing nominateds to projected totals, I believe he could be somewhere up there in that 670, 675 range, right? So like that automatically kind of puts a lot of pressure on these other guys to hit 675 above, right? And then lucky last at the bottom of these projected nominateds, we've got Brian, who you coached, right, Dave?
Yeah, correct. So Brian's nommed at 612.5, and that was a comp, I think, in maybe March, something like that. And it was just a South Australia local qualifying comp. So since then, we've put on like a huge amount to Brian's total. I think it'll be like plus 20 on squat, plus 15 on bench, and it'll be like plus 40 on deadlift, something like that. So he'll, I guess his nominated total isn't reflective of his actual numbers right now, especially since the comp was so long ago and how well training's been going. So he's pretty healthy. We've got one more big squat to go for this week. And yeah, we should be looking around that similar sort of numbers to a couple of these other guys around that sort of 675, 680 mark. So I think top 5 is going to be a big scrap. And there'll be someone who falls out of that top 5 position if they don't have a good day and execute well.
Yeah. And I think to add as well, like the standard of lifting is super, super high in this under 83 class, right? Like I think if we were using like GL score, something like that, they're all possibly upwards of like 90 plus, which is pretty good to see. Like standard of lifting, everyone's strong. So it's entertaining regardless of where they possibly end up. All right. We're now going to move on to the under 93 class. Nominated with a 700, we've got Richard Shalik. Coming in right behind him, 2 of the same nominated totals, 695 with Edward Sun, Simon Shahadi, and then 682.5 Daniel Lee. This one I think is going to be quite a battle. I personally have been following Simon Shahadi's training a bit more closely lately. Coming up from the under 83s into the 93s, his training has blown up. And I know he's recently got a coach. He signed up with Steve not too long ago. And from going coachless to getting a coach just recently, man, like the numbers that he's put up at nominated, he's likely just going to blow that up, right? I think he hit 715 at junior nationals last year. And training total now is like 732, just 2 weeks out. Got anything to add there as well, Sam?
A comfy 732. That last deadlift, I think it was 320. He just straight up picked it up. It looks really strong. So I don't know too much about like the details of his training and what Steve's got lined out for him, but I'm sure he's obviously got, some more kilos on the bar this week, heading into the competition. But yeah, definitely looking strong since making that the weight class jump. With Richard, I watched him online when another client of mine competed at Alpha. So he went 700 at that comp. And then just when we're doing our scouting before this episode, he hasn't posted much training since. There was one post where he said he tweaked his back on a 260, 267 deadlift. And then I think it was 3 days later, he was pausing 255. So I don't think there's any injury issues there, but he definitely has been quiet since that 700 kilo comp at Alpha. But from what I could see on that Alpha Athletes July comp, he is a very well-rounded lifter across squat, bench, and deadlift. He's got about 305 kilo pull, pretty good across the board, moves well under the bar. So it'll be interesting to see, obviously, again, someone who's not posting too much training, how far ahead of that 700 he is. And someone being, it's just that classic, like, we've got Simon with the big deadlift, where we've got Richard kind of being all across the board. I guess the only other one would be Squid, Edward's son, and how his training is going. I'm not too closely following his socials and stuff, but yeah, what's his progress kind of been like?
So I think the main thing that I've seen off after Hunter, I think he tweaked his adductor on the day, which was
That's
unfortunate.
right. Yeah.
But he has been coming back just recently. I think I saw him pull 300 again.
Yeah, I
which
saw
is a
that
number
300
that's
pull. Yeah.
yeah, that's generally a number for him that like if he's hitting that, he's going to be quite confident by meet day. So it's good to see that he's been able to rehab through that adductor and put himself in a position where he could still vie for that second,
Yeah.
maybe even first spot. I'm not too
I
sure. We just got to see how things play
I
out.
think he did a decent squat double too. Just from having a quick look before as well. He was like 240 or 245 double. But I think either way, it's going to be a situation of probably Richard kind of cementing his total by his third deadlift, you know, around that maybe 300, 310 mark, just taking guesses. And then we're obviously going to have like Squid and Simon, the deadlift specialists, coming out and pulling big on their second and third deadlifts to take those jumps to first and second place.
Yeah, for sure. All right, moving on. We've got the 105 battles. We've got Jedi Dallo with 707.5 nominated total, followed by Sam's very own Lachlan Allen, 677.5, and then Owen, 675, and Luke Irving, 670. Also matching that with Daniel Jurisic, 670 as well. I think this one's actually quite stacked. We could even add 660 as well with Fletcher Masters and Francis Galang, 637.5. So it's stacked all the way through. Possibly a battle for that second and third spot off just the initial impressions.
The biggest one with the 100, the 105s is, I think a big chunk of them are taking a jump towards that elusive 700 kilo total based off nominations. So, you know, we've got Jedi obviously at 707 on the noms, and then everyone else is below that 700 kilo mark. But there's a bunch of lifters who are taking that jump to 700 based off how training has gone in the middle part of this year. Let's take Fletcher, for example. So 657.5. He's one of my lifters. He's got one more squat this week, and he's looking pretty much good to just seal up that 700 kilo total in training. So he's pulled 285, and he's got squat and bench to come up the rest of this week. And then we've got Lockie Allen. So he's been dealing with some niggles this prep, but he's a dog, man. He's fighting through it. He's sticking to the mission and keeping progressing through training. He as well will be shooting for around that 700 kilo mark. He's got one more squat this week. He squatted 272, 600 pounds last week. He's a squat specialist, and we're eyeing off that 280 for his last heavy this week. He wants that state squat record. I know Brody has squatted 275 at last year's junior nationals, but the state record is only listed at 262. So it's kind of Lockie's motivation to take that one off Brody around that 280 mark. So yeah, I'm keen to see him finish off this week and then taper it off. And then we've also got the likes of Francis. He'll be chipping quite a chunk on his total too since his nomination of 637. And then we've got that big stack in the middle there with Nathan, Luke, and Owen as well.
Yeah, definitely a huge battle, especially for that second and third spot, right? It does look like Jedi is quite ahead where he's
just about to say, I think so. Jedi went 725 in the gym, just looking at his Instagram after a music festival. Again, these young fellas, they like to have a good time and also lift. But he went 725 post festi, and he looks strong. Big deadlift. He's pulled 310 for 2. Big long arms. He's built for it. So it'll be interesting to see where he lands up at the end, and then it's basically just where everyone else jumps up to after that.
Yeah.
I think something to comment on as well is Dan Jurisic and Luke Irving. So these two guys have been like just on ghost mode basically. So I think Luke Irving, his profile's private, and then Dan Jurisic stopped posting in like September. So these guys, from what I could tell, Dan had been really popping off. So he's coached by Beth. He had been really popping off. His numbers have been great, PRing everywhere. So he could be one of those guys that's just, secretly put on like 40, 50 kilos on his total. And I wouldn't be surprised if he comes out with that 700 kilo sort of milestone as well. And that'll leave like 4 or 5 of them all totaling around 700. So I think it's just going to come down to who executes on the day. So Owen Brown, one of my guys, should be around that 700 kilo total this week as well. So I put him right up in the mix there as well. So everyone's hunting a bit of silverware in this 105 class, and maybe looking to see if Jedi slips up and loses some kilos everywhere, and then maybe he has to pull more than he actually can to make it up there in first place and get snagged. Anything can happen.
Yeah. Another one of those like really, really stacked classes similar to the 83s where it's like anything could happen on the day, right? Like you can't really predict what's going to happen until the game just starts happening. But yeah, moving on.
I think real quick,
Sorry.
just for the most part, apart from Jedi, I believe like they're all pretty much like, squat, bench, deadlift equal across the board. Like we've got obviously Lockie with the squat, but then, I think by the deadlifts, it's going to be like just straight numbers and maths amongst those battles, and just kind of almost predicting like if someone's going to slip, not so much using your weapon of that big deadlift. So yeah, it'll be interesting for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely not like 93s where it's like the last 2 guys can kind of just sit and wait, right?
Yeah.
All right, moving on to our 120s. 2 possibly big contenders here. We've got 750 kilos Christopher Witten, followed by 715 Tobias Hatcher, and then third nominated 672.5 Cicerin Sray. I think the potential podium or who's looking to secure first, second, third is quite clearer for this one. Chris is quite far ahead, followed by Tobias, and then Sray here, Cicerin.
Yeah. So we got I don't know too much about Chris, but yeah, just doing some scouting before the episode. Does quite a bit in training, so he's on a deadlift bar. He's very, very strong. He pulls 300 by 4. 2 weeks ago on a deadlift bar, he was doing some sumo pulls pretty comfortably. A very strong 280 for 4 on a stiff bar conventional. We've got Tobias Hatcher. He's my 8 years younger multiverse lookalike. He's gone 715 nom, but based off training, he is probably looking to jump quite far ahead of that, around that mid 750 mark. Big deadlifter again, looking around that 310 plus mark, depending on how he tapers in his last few sessions, and then squatting around 265, 270 plus, 170 plus. So he's, depending on how Chris performs, we can maybe see Tobias jump up on that last deadlift and snatch first.
Yeah, I might have to backtrack on what I said about how clear it is, right? Because of these nominated compared to how much progress they've made that you can kind of see when you scout, it's crazy. Like nominated is probably the least reflective of what's happening.
I think especially like I said before, amongst the juniors, right? Because they're just making so much progress, whether they're going up in weight class or staying weight class, or even sometimes going down in weight class, as we've spoken before. They're all making very rapid progress over this middle chunk of the year since they're nominated or since they're qualifiers. So yeah, across the board, it's pretty hard to tell.
Yeah. And then closing things out, we've got 2 competitors in the under 120 plus weight class with a 790 nominated total. We've got Benjamin Paraguez, and then coming in second, 522 with Michael J. Walters. So yeah, looking at Ben's, who covered Ben? Was that you, Sam?
I took a look at him.
Oh, sorry.
So I found out about Ben, I guess basically only last year, because I had a sub junior 120 plus. And so when he was starting to age out, I was starting to look at, okay, who's he got to go up against next year? And it was basically just Ben. Ben was like the big dog of the weight class. And he's been in the sport for quite a while, even though he's quite young. So I think he's around 21 years old, but he started powerlifting at around 15, 16. So his progress has been pretty insane. I think he was only totaling like around 500 in his first couple comps. And now he's all the way up to a 790 nominated total. And that's sort of, made up of around 290 squat, 195 bench, 300 deadlift. So he's right on the door of 300 squat and deadlift, 200 bench. So For such a young kid, he's super strong. Has a lot of potential. To just sort of keep adding kilos. He's someone else that has also missed a fair bit in competition when you look at his open powerlifting. So he often leaves kilos on the platform, just by missing attempts. So, like based on this, he's obviously going to clean up the weight class. Provided he just hits lifts. But it'll be interesting to see if he can, have a 9 for 9 day, secure every kilo, and hopefully crack into that 800 kilo total milestone.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess that pretty much ties up all the potential nominations and battles we've got. Again, I think we've iterated it heaps of times, but like for these juniors that are still newly coming into the sport, these nominated totals essentially mean nothing, right? Like you do need to do your due diligence to scout a little bit more, see whether who's progressing, who's moving up weight classes, things like that. But it is exciting to see. I'm excited to see the really big battles that's about to unfold. I'll probably have my hand in probably a couple, but the ones that I'm thinking off the top of my head, I've got like, I'm helping out in the 83s. I think 59s I might be helping out because Steve's gone. Possibly 93s as well. So there's a lot of battles that's going to be happening, and I'm just keen to see it. I think that'll wrap things up for our preview show.
Thank you, everyone. Let's go get these kilos.